Welcome to Masterclass, our opportunity to hear Coach Sean Brosnan of Newbury Park and Coach Doug Souls of Great Oak in a detailed discussion of the races where their boys teams went head-to-head during an epic 2019 cross-country season. The first round went to Newbury Park in a record-breaking triumph at the Woodbridge Classic. The second showdown at the 41st Clovis Invitational went to Great Oak in an amazing comeback. Their final clash will be for the biggest prize, a national championship at Nike Cross Nationals. Both teams won their respective CIF Southern Section and CIF State Division titles and qualified for nationals as the top two teams in California. Newbury Park star frontrunner Nico Young looks to be in excellent form, coming off a record-shattering win at the Southern Section Finals and nearly breaking the CIF State Meet course record while holding back. Great Oak has been to nationals every year since winning in 2015 and placed second at the 2018 meet. Both of these teams will battle the deepest pool of individual and team talent in memory on a cold, rainy December day. Here we go, NXN. The forecast 2 days before was it's going to actually be dry, which of course wasn't the case. It's Portland, things changed. But coming in, first off, we'll talk about the boys' field, because the boys' field was unlike any other. And the reason I say that is for two reasons. First off, team-wise, California, which has been on a roll lately, had the two best teams in the country on paper, and it was the two best teams we've ever had. And we've seen the bar getting better. One going into NXN could look at this very closely, breaking all the data down and say, these could be the two best teams in high school cross-country history. The data can back it up. Then we look at the individuals, and this thing, it was like murderer's row. You've got Nico Young, a guy who's been holding back, could have torched the World Park record, but the guy, it's silly how he was doing. Leo Dashbaugh, unfortunately, was injured. We had already said if he's eligible, because he had to go injury-wise, he was getting that large berth automatically, no question. Unfortunately, that didn't quite happen. Matt Strangio, from a program and a coach who was always money in the big race. Ryan Shoppe, the kid from Texas who ran a ridiculous negative split in a 3,200. Going off from there, Josh Methner, course record, Detweiler Park in Illinois. That course has seen so many great ones. Chris Derrick, Evan Jaeger, Craig Virgin, he took down Virgin's mark. Connor Olson, Colorado, Easton Allred. There were so many kids, Allred that Midas touch. There were so many good kids. Nathan Green, top junior in America. This thing was just loaded up front. Never seen all in one race. This could almost potentially be a repeat of the dynamics of Clovis, where the field gets blown out. What was the message going in terms of, guys, there are more individuals in this race that won't factor in the team scoring, as to how to prepare for that?
Yeah, that was, I watched every video I possibly could from this course when they started doing NXN on this course. And I was looking at, and now that they have more individuals, the at-large bids and stuff like that, that was a big factor for us, because a part of our way to win was having Nico and Jace. So having, if we're going to beat Great Oak, we were going to have a boatload of guys in between my 1 and 2 and his team. I looked at everything online, and unfortunately for us, it wasn't as many people with all the individuals. It seems like the individuals monopolized all the All-American spots usually, or even the top, whatever. I don't even know. I think Nico scored us 1 point the year before, scoring fourth place. I think Jace scored us 5 points this year, or 4, and he was 18th. So it wasn't as much an advantage for us as I thought, but I also was saying every body counts, like every person body you see, and that was something we really had to reiterate to everyone, like every guy counts, and you have to finish strong, and it's a big thing with us. So
you've been at this meet several times before, so you know how dense it can be, how strong it can be, and you yourself mentioned this was even stronger this year. What was your message? Was it any different going in addressing the dynamics of that boys race scoring wise?
Yeah, we've got charts that we have for, if you're here, this is what you actually are scoring. So our kids have a pretty good idea of, what they needed to be. And we initially thought we would put quite a few kids in the 40s to 50s. And then after seeing how loaded the front end was, we kind of thought maybe 50s to 60s, which is how it played out. It's about where our kids were at based on where they were finishing at state and the invitationals and whatnot. So, we ran pretty much what we expected, but, our two top guys from Clovis, actually our number one, our number two, and our number three at Clovis, when we beat them by 8 points, didn't score for us at NXN. So, we were a little bit like, okay, how are we going to have a chance to win when we're not putting the guys that gave us a chance to beat them? One wasn't there and two didn't run well. So we figured that we were probably out of it. And then, we realized that we had like a 10-second spread. Maybe it's good enough for us to get on the podium. And then when they got on the podium and they said everybody was within like 13 points, we thought, okay, maybe we did get a chance to win this one.
So going into the race on meet week, I think it was on Wednesday, we had our pre-production webcast meeting. Our director, Paul Swangard, Chris Derrick, and myself talking about how this all looks. Who's going to win? And Chris said, it'll be Great Oak, and here's why. From my vantage point, I said, it'll be Newbury Park, and which caught them a little bit off guard, because I think both of them thought it was going to be. I said, here's the difference. Okay, unless something goes terribly wrong, their top two kids from Newbury Park are going to be money. They're not going to, and this field's going to cater to them as far as the whole scoring dynamic. 3 is going to be the key, and that's going to be Colin Salmon. Is probably going to be the number 3 man. Here's a kid who is a gamer. I've seen that multiple times before, and crunch time, he's going to answer the call, so long as, if the NXN field was early season, he didn't have the strength yet, but by the end he'd be fine. Great Oak, they're so good and they're so deep, their strength, in a sense, can be the weakness, because you have 7 guys that can all do the job, but almost always you're going to have 2 kids that are going to be off, but they're so damn good, they're so damn deep, they can cover it. Right here, they've got a team that can expose that if they have kids that are off that might be their front runners. Unfortunately, that's kind of how things began to play out the day of. What was your overriding message to the team NXN week?
Just stay focused, I mean, you don't have to pump them up the week of, because they already know what the goal is, right? Probably the same for you. They already knew what they were trying to accomplish. So, I think more than anything, it's just have them relaxed and prepared and remembering what the goal is. And, if you're already prepared, you don't have to try to get prepared that week. So, we were confident that we would go up there and run pretty well. Unfortunately, I think if we'd have run Friday, we would have run a lot better. Perfect weather on Friday, dry course. I've never seen the course that perfect, and I think we would have run really well. I think the 2 guys for us that didn't have great days would have run a lot better on Friday than they did on Saturday. So,
what was the message to the team the week of?
I mean, I told them, listen, I grew up in New York. If the conditions are terrible, because we didn't know. I said, none of these teams run in conditions like this. They're all fooling you. And I didn't even know if that was true. I said, they all pretend they run better in the mud. I said, that's BS. Let's just go out there. And I told them, I don't care if you're 50 guys around you. I go, you're going to be in 30th place and you're going to surge and you're going to have 20 guys go with you. And you got to expect that. I told that to Colin, Nick, all those guys. I didn't say Jason, Nico. They knew where they needed to be. But I needed them to understand that they were doing no wrong by being with masses of people, because we weren't exposed as much as they were to NXN, or even they didn't have teammates that were there before them as much as these other teams. It's our second year going. We were 6th the year before. It was like, listen, you guys really have to be prepared for this, and just don't believe the hype that like a muddy course is bad for California. Although 2 of my guys ran pretty bad in it, but we were still able to run well up front. So,
you had mentioned you're big into visualization. A lot of the really good programs are big into that. During visualization for this particular meet, what were some of the biggest seeds you tried to plant mentally in their minds?
I think more than anything, just that they were going to be in the positions they were supposed to be in. You know, this is where you're going to be. This is what you're going to be doing. Don't stress it. Relax and be where you're supposed to be, and don't panic. NXN is a panic-inducing event, and if you have no experience on that course, you know, you see kids get shot out the back left and right because the course is very difficult. So I think more than anything, just relax and do your job. You know where you're supposed to be. You know about. You know, I'm not asking you to go out there and run top 10. I'm asking you to go out there and be in the top 50 and compete in a place that makes sense for you. And I think the kids responded really well to that. You know, sometimes when it's really rainy like that, it's just like in football. You know, a better team can lose because the ball bounces a little bit funky in the mud. So, you know, we knew that we didn't have anything in the bag, and we were going to have to run really, really well to win.
Okay, so here we are in Portland. Cross Nationals, top 22 teams in the country, along with, as it turned out this year, just 44 individuals. So stacked field. If you guys recall, what was the last thing you told your teams before the race started?
I was on the course. I went on the course. We all got in a huddle, and I told them, there they are right there. I told them, I said, this is something I say all the time. I said, listen, it's going to hurt like hell out there. And you're going to put your head down, and you're going to say, I can, and you keep having to say that. And then I walked away and I said, let's go get a national title. And that's all I said, and I walked away. So.
I honestly just give them all a hug and tell them, you know, we love you, we're proud of you, you know, go out there and do what you can do.
Outstanding. Okay, so again, this is so many, I believe there were a total of, if I recall right, the boys race had, I believe, 30 individual state champions. Lost track of how many team state champions, and most of these teams were podium teams at their state meet if they didn't win, and so many all-staters in this field as well. Is pretty incredible. Your thoughts on the course, especially the start? What's key?
Keeping your feet. You know, you got to get positioned for that first corner because it just hits you, and all of a sudden everybody goes left real quick. So, you know, trying to get position and not getting out so far ahead that you're being pulled at a pace that you're just not ready for. So positioning is pretty key. You know, not going out too hard unless you're really ready to run there.
As far as yourself, Sean, with Nico, you know, the guy who was basically the favorite with a lot of high-level contenders, how did you want him to attack this race tactically?
Well, we wanted him out. I mean, I think Collins took the lead right here. That was a little unexpected. It was only for about 5-10 seconds. But I wanted them all out. We trained to go out. I was like, you got to get out that first 800. You see a couple kids went down there. I was like, you got to get out that first 800, and then you got to settle in, because you just don't want. I didn't want my guys in 100th place off the bat, you know. So most of my guys knew where they could be. I could see Nick. I could see my top 4 all right there. So Nico, the goal was get out in the front. As soon as you make that left turn, you're gonna have to go. And there he goes. And then he told me Strangio took the lead and he slowed it down and he was like, I gotta go. And that's what he did. And the whole goal was to try to come across. He had to be in the 430s. I was like, you gotta run in the 430s on that first mile. In these conditions, you're gonna wreck people, but you'll be fine. That was what Nico's goal was. And obviously we could see he's doing it right now.
So your squad this year shows phenomenal balance. So with that in mind, what were you hoping to see in this race at this early juncture?
You know, just that they got in the position they were supposed to be in. We know where they're supposed to be at the mile, where they're supposed to move to in the second mile, and then how they're supposed to close. And we actually were in a pretty good spot, you know, through the first mile. It was after that a couple of our key guys, you know, started to fade, and that's when we started to worry.
So by then, you know, we already did have, it ended up turning into a rainy day in Portland. Big surprise. And it was quite cold, as we'll discuss a little bit later on. But there you see the sea of humanity, and we're already a couple of minutes into this race, and you see there is, I mean, if you go ahead and go from Nico and go back 10 seconds, you'll see a mob of people close within 3 seconds of each other in that, you know, in that grouping amongst each other. So it's a lot of scoring, potential scoring. In reality, a lot of non-scorers there, a lot of individuals there in reality. So you got a situation here where you've got a kid who's good, maybe in your case, maybe with a call-in, even though it's still early, but a call-in or a Jace in the race, maybe a call may be a better example. He could be in 50th, surrounded by all kinds of all-state seniors, loads of talent, loads of confidence. What was going to be key in those situations for him?
Well, he played a big key. I mean, he told me after, too. He was very, very aware where Great Oak was. And he happened to be around them the whole race. Every time I saw them, he was in a swarm of the guys. Maybe not the first K, but once he kind of settled in, so he really had to realize, like, listen, like, he knew that, 60th place for us could be big, and that was the goal. I mean, I was hoping he can get in the 30s, just like an actual 30-something place, but I think he finished high 50s or maybe low 50s, I think 50th or something. I think that's where you guys were right. They all, I think they were right. They came in all together. But he was going to be a key,
How do you balance where you want the kids to run their race, you want them to have that great team effort, but at the same time, if one can become a bit more of a front runner, helps our chances. How do you gauge that where you kind of maybe want to try and encourage it, but not at the point where it blows up either?
Yeah, I mean, you got to show them the math so they understand what's going on, but you also have to give them the freedom. If you feel good, you got to push. So, they know that they can go a little bit harder if they feel, awesome that day. And, we don't really hold them back as much as we just let them know this is how the math works out for us to win. So, you need to be somewhere between 30th and 50th for us to have a chance. If you're feeling great, then maybe you run 30th. If you're not, then you better be holding on to 50th so that we got a chance. And for the most part, the 5 guys that scored for us that day all were within the zones that we had for them.
So before the meet started, the kid in third right here, Ryan Shoppe in the white over blue, he was the one kid that I thought could give Nico the biggest challenge, even more so than Leo and more than Josh. And he didn't have it on this day. Josh, the kid who is currently in the front of the pack here behind Nico, but in frame, he mentioned afterward, he basically said, because I talked to him at Foot Locker, when he won at Foot Locker, and I said, would you have changed anything against Nico, giving a second chance? And he basically said, he's on another level, and that for him to say that, to concede that was pretty interesting. But as we'll see later on, when the move was made, the race was over. And given the caliber here, that's pretty stunning.
I think people thought he was going to come back. I was hearing...
Yeah,
I was out on the course. I heard what people were saying, and they're like, "He looks terrible. He's gonna come. He ain't coming back." I knew. Yeah. To me, at 3K, it was no way he was coming back. We have a thing. I say, if I say 5G, that means you're 5 seconds ahead. And I think I said 4G, 8G. The last thing I said to him was 12G, and then he ended up winning by 14 seconds. And that was the last time I saw him. He's just picking up slowly. Even though he slowed down a little in that last mile, he still picked up seconds on everybody. So, but point-wise, I think I didn't even look at the scores. I wasn't even paying attention as it was going. I think someone told us we were in the lead at the mile. I was like, that means nothing. Like, it is a million people around my guys. Like, I didn't even pay attention to it. It's so hard to tell where you're at as a team in this.
It is.
Because when I saw Colin pass with all of, like, the Great Oak guys, it seemed like an eternity for Nick and Daniel. So I just did not know.
Did either of you sense pressure on your team coming in?
Not any more than we already put on ourselves. I mean, I don't think anybody from outside our program can overly put the pressure on us that we haven't prepared for from the start of the season, if not earlier.
I think we talked about it. We wanted that pressure because I think it was important for them to be able to handle it. Like, I think if you pretend it's not there, you're fooling yourself. Just like if you pretend a race isn't going to be painful, it is. You got to be able to. You have to hit it head on, and that's just kind of how we looked at it. I mean, I think we came in ranked number 1 on certain polls. There was like 3 polls I looked at, and one of them had us 2. Just depending who you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know in recent years on the girls' side, when you look at, first it was Sarah Baxter, when she was at another level in her, shall we say, her era, so to speak. Alexa Ephraimson, of course, Mary Kane was second in one of those races. Then we see our girl who went to Colorado, Katie Rainsberger. We saw the individuals and the girls just get tougher and tougher individually. And there were some times where I would see a Caitlin Toohey taking off, and you think, my God, is she going to fall apart? We know how good she is, but is this going to be a bit too much? And for the guys, we've had a lot of good runners in recent years, but not to the one of this level. And for most of the race, I thought, okay, he'll be fine. But then I started to get a little bit worried, like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't get into that red zone and fall apart, because he is the best runner. I'm hoping he doesn't. And after a while, it's kind of like, my gosh, this kid is just, there's no stopping him.
After watching him all season, I was not worried at all.
This is the point. I was actually standing next to his college coach, Mike Smith, on the inside, and I could see him. And I saw him. I said, "This is where he was supposed to put his surge on because he was supposed to have 3 guys sitting on him, but they didn't go with him." And I knew it, And he did pick it up a little here.
Yeah. Nico mentioned that when we interviewed him. He basically said that there was one point on the course where you and Mike were together, and you guys gave him a cue, and he knew things were good. And when he looked back, also he was a little surprised that the gap was what it was,
right.
And he knew he was still feeling good.
Yeah.
Tiring, but in control.
He was surprised people didn't go with him the first mile. I thought they would. I looked at all the splits that I could find from this course, and that no one really goes out that fast on it. And I was like, we're going to change that. I just didn't want that.
As this race is going on, for either of you, did you guys, what was going through your mind in terms of the national team championship? Did you begin to picture it, worry about it? When was the thought of the team scoring picture and the possibility, what was going through your minds?
I thought we were out of it at this point, because Chris Verdugo and Cole Swiers-Jaeger, who were our 2 guys that came in the top 10 at Clovis, had fallen out the back. So I knew we were still going to be okay, somewhere in the top 6 or 7, but I didn't think we were competing for the team title at that point. So it was a little bit frustrating, because I felt like we could run so much better than we did. And it wasn't until really, they came in so close together. Our boys actually closed really well. It wasn't until they finished that we realized maybe we are on the podium. But yeah, I was frustrated at this point of the race.
With all that's going on, all the bodies in the middle, and that the white jerseys are mostly the individuals, did you have much idea as to how good it was looking, or were you totally a ball of nerves?
I at this point, I thought we had a chance, but I didn't know, because there was too many. I was trying to be at the certain places I wanted to be in the course. I was trying to figure out where to go. I was in the middle. There was one point that I missed. I saw Colin come and he looked good, but I missed my 4, 5, 6, and 7. I saw my 7. I'm like, well, I don't think all 3 of them dropped out. Like, I just couldn't find them in the mix of people. So honestly, I saw the first mile split and I knew we were in the lead by then. I didn't know. I didn't know until I saw the finish, and then I was a little worried, but.
Yeah, it's difficult when you don't, and it's hard to get this data. I didn't realize we were as close to him as we were there, because it's hard to find that data. Sometimes you'll get a text from someone watching on the from back home, but I didn't realize we were as close as we were at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 16 points right there, 2 miles.
Yeah, that's still really
This
close.
point in the race is the dangerous point, because everybody starts falling in that one spot. A lot of guys go down right there. This was a great race by Grover. Yeah.
I think it was a little bit later in the race. I think it was like in the last minute and a half. But he went down. He's so athletic. He bounced right back up and continued on.
Yeah.
That was pretty solid. Maybe one kid right there.
You can see a bunch of guys are falling that same spot.
Yeah. I'm going to rename that spot Soul's Corner.
It was just muddy and people, that was, I didn't even see that part of the course. I was probably standing more towards the finish at this point as they were coming around. Actually, no, this is probably the last time I saw Nico right around here. You possibly touched upon this in a prior interview with us, but is there anything either of you do specifically to get your kids ready for this course?
Yeah, we do sand work. And that's what's changed for us. Is a lot of September and October we're running sand repeats. So if we're doing 4 or 5 times 800, we're doing it in the sand. So we're really trying to prep for the mud, which is it's frustrating if you do that and then you go and it's a dry course. But most of the time, 8 out of 10 years, it's going to be pretty muddy. So we're just prepping for mud, trying to make sure our kids. The biggest complaint I've gotten from my kids is we get up there and the course change is so hard for them because we just don't have soft surfaces in California really other than sand. So. our ultimate goal is to make sure that they don't get to mile 3 and start dying out because they're not, their legs are burning. So getting them used to that leg burn, and that's helped us a lot.
Sean?
We this year we started doing like miles, Ks, 400s, whatever we end up the workout being for our interval day on a park right by our high school called Dos Vientos Park. And Dos Vientos is grass identical to this, and they water it too much. And we actually, it's crazy. It's like pretty good. So we did Ks there, and they're like full of mud. I'm like, and it's soft, so I don't want to do it too much, but we do it enough that I don't know if it helps, but I think it gives them the indication like, hey, this is, and a lot of times if they just think it's helping, it's gonna help. It's like, listen, this is NXN, and they're like, it is, and it has the same feel. Because this looks like a pretty bad golf course. Like the grass isn't like it's not manicured that well, so it looks like a field,
Yeah, because it rains there so often, it grows quite quickly.
I would imagine, yeah.
We're getting to the point now, we're coming up now on the last final stretch. They'll make the turn here. They'll do the double rise, so to speak, and then the finish line comes in sight. And once again, I mean, this race has had, over the years, NXN has had a really good number 2 runner or a really good number 3 runner where you've got 2 or 3 kids battling. Never has a field been as deep as 6 or 7 with proven talent as this one, and yet you see how he has destroyed this field. Just completely blown these guys who have taken down records on historic courses. He has blown them out completely.
Yeah, I think I was right past the hill at this point, and I saw him go in, and I didn't know his time, but I was like, okay, obviously he won, but I could see them coming just up the hill, and that's what I was a little, I was about to get worried because I didn't know where everybody was.
Well, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
No records early on, so forth, that didn't quite hold the same meaning. You wanted him to be the best at the end, and that speaks volumes right there. Destroyed an all-time field.
Yeah, it was a pretty awesome day for him and his family too, and everything. And then I could see him looking back, and then you see Jace comes by pretty quickly. I think he comes in right in front of Grover. I think they come in together, and I could see Nico looking for his teammates. There's Strangio, yeah.
So you mentioned, I think it was at mile 2 is when you've got the first scoring update, and you realize, oh boy, how excited and nervous were you at this point in time, stretch drive?
I knew we were all right there together, but I also knew that Colin was with him, and that was my fear because I knew his kick was going to come into play, and I was worried if he outkicked all of our guys.
I think they're right there.
That it would be a big difference. Yeah, he won it for him, honestly. That the big kick, that last 100 meters out of Colin, I think was the sealing the deal.
And we saw Cole Sprout. I accidentally omitted him in the pre-meet breakdown. Here's a kid who was right behind Nico at Arcadia, one of the co-favorites here. The guy's just unreal. Another one that, again, just so many good kids in this race, and Nico just found a way to really gap an all-time field convincingly.
Yeah, Nick came by with Daniel. They came in together, and that was scary because I think they were like 90th, and at this point, I said, they didn't make the podium. No way. I didn't think I just didn't know. I thought they were back too far, and then no one says anything, and I was like, let's get our stuff and leave. And then, one of the guys at Nike came around and said, stay here to get ready to go on. I said, we made the podium? And he's like, yeah.
It's hard to tell.
That really long delay before we announced the podium finishers, people thought it was the race review and the whole bit. Nope, there was one team that took off. It took us forever to corral them back in.
Well, it was Nico. When Nico won, someone took him to go change because he was like the winner, and we were freezing. We were waiting for him, and then they couldn't get a hold of the Nike girl that took Nico. Okay. I'm like, where is he? And I was sitting there. We're sitting there talking to all the marketing people, and I was like, where the heck is this guy? He was going changing, putting dry clothes on.
So this unbearable wait, which happens every year because they want to try and build up the drama for the announcement. This unbearable wait where you don't know for sure what happened. You saw your team. The team is gassed. They gave it their all. What do you tell the team in this moment when you don't know the outcome, but you know what you saw with your eyes from your kids?
I usually tell them where I think they finished. I think I said 6th or 7th. So they were not real pleased. They said, "We'll wait and see if you guys made the podium." But knowing that two of our top guys had not run well, we figured probably 6th. So that's what we were gunning for. Maybe we're top 6, and if we got lucky, maybe we got on the podium. It's so hard to tell in this race. It really is.
No other team in the country could legitimately have 2 of its top kids out of the picture and yet still be in the hunt for a national title. And yours was one that was the actual situation. They were so deep, so strong, so prepared that still, even with guys off,
it's a big testament to Eric Reza and Leandro Candre and John Worthy and those guys for their ability to come in and race at that level, not always getting those opportunities. But yeah, I was proud of those guys stepping up like that, and I didn't realize how close they were to our front guy. They really came together at the end. So.
And the unsung heroes, the kids that are at home that were 8th, 9th, or 10th, because they pushed so hard and pushed the kids you just mentioned so hard, those kids were ready on this day because the other kids kept pushing and challenging. Really a team effort beyond.
Yeah, I mean, had we been able to run our B team at state, we might have had 2 teams that made it there.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the crazy thing.
Agreed. Your thoughts? What was going through your mind? What would you tell the kids at this point in time, not knowing?
Yeah, well, we were trying to find Nico at the same thing, and then a couple of my guys' parents were there. I kind of walked away, and I was like, I think I was trying to find stuff on my phone. I couldn't, and I remember there was no one around. I just took this water bottle and I chucked it and exploded against the fence. I was like, I'm gonna have to go face these kids now. I didn't think we'd podium, and then I walked over and. I think they saw the look on my face, and my number 5 guy, he just was shaking his head, had his head down. I'm like, Daniel, you ran your heart out. Don't worry about it. It's good. And then they came over and they said, get your guys. And I was like, are you kidding? And then I'm like, we got 3rd. I was like, there's no way. I was like, but then they said it was a 14-point differential. So I said, okay, we could have won it because that's too close to say somebody won it over anyone else.
Yeah, that's what I felt too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know a couple of your kids were off, at least one of your kids were off, so it really made that uncertainty even more so.
Right.
Now, we get the announcement. What's the first reaction for you guys when they announce, and second place team, Temecula? We saw your reaction, but what was going through your mind? What were the emotions?
I just felt bad for my seniors. It's you get kids that come in as freshmen and they tell you for 4 years we're going to win a national championship, and you're selling that dream to them. To miss by 4 points is heartbreaking for that group of kids. The younger kids will come back and they'll have another shot, but those guys, Gabe Abbas and Chris Verdugo, that have been going after it year after year, they've been on those teams, and to just come up short 2 years in a row, not second place in 2017, 2018. It's heartbreaking for those kids because you want them to win, you want them to kind of complete that journey, and to just miss is definitely heartbreaking.
I happened to be right behind both teams when the announcement was made, being up on the webcast stage, had my iPhone going, and the emotion there. On one hand, you want to rejoice because Newbury Park just won, wherever they're from. The California team even a bit more special. But then I kind of panned over. I already knew before the announcement who won, but I panned over, and I just see the heartbreak, but the class. But I was hurting because some of the seniors you have are really, really, really good kids. And I was hurting inside just watching that, witnessing their pain, trying to balance it with the celebration of these kids who also worked really hard. It was tough. What was your reaction?
Well, when we were sitting there and I heard Draper, and I said, okay, now it's coming down to the 2 California teams. And I heard, I don't know who it was, someone's like, that's right, California could run in the mud. I'm like, who said that? I don't know, that was pretty awesome. I heard someone screaming, because I went up with them, with the kids, which some people criticized me for, and I don't know why, but I stood and they said, yeah, go up with them. The Draper coaches were up. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna, and it's something we experienced together. I was excited. So I went up there. I honestly, right before they announced the second place team, I was thinking, how do we get off this stage if they win? Because they're to our left. and they put us in the middle because it's alphabetical order, I was like, this is going to be hard. Like, and that's what I'm thinking. I was like, how do we get at, because they're going to be celebrating. We're going to like, there's no way off. We're going to have to go through their celebration. Because I was, you know, you just think the worst, like, no. And then when I heard Temecula, and I was like, I mean, I think we erupted, but it was a pure you know, it was emotion. But I do have to say, after all that, I've said this about some other teams when we won the state meet, but like all of his guys, you know, every one of them came over and congratulated us. And I'm not just saying on the stage, but even afterwards, they had that dinner afterwards. Every one of them, they couldn't have been nicer and more respectful. That I think it was a true gesture. I don't think it was like, yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I need to say good job to the team that won, because the reality is it was 4 points. That was one wrong turn, one slip in the mud. That was, you know, Nick, not, you know, any of them. I mean, Nick let guys pass him at the end, and I was like, no. And it was like, but that could have been the difference. It could, I mean, anyone. I don't think Jason Nico made much of a difference, honestly, with the overall points. But from Colin on, I think it was, you know, if one of his guys just got something and started kicking a little sooner, it would have been them. So it's like, I know that, you know. But, you know, we're going to take it, but it is what it is, So
4 point differential, at least 3 kids combined were off from the teams combined. Don't kill me for asking this. Did the best team win?
I think the beauty of it is that we could run that race over and over and over and get different results. I don't think it'd be the same results every single time out. You know, we really knew it was going to be us in Newbury at that point, and we talked about it at the beginning of the race. You know, before the race, we were right next to each other, and we talked for a long time that, you know, no matter what, let's go out and go 1-2 for California. That was really one of the big goals, I think, for both of us as coaches. So, you know, I know if we would have run a perfect race on our part, we'd be really hard to beat, and I think same thing for their team. If they run a perfect race, they're going to be really hard to beat. So, you know, it comes down to who does it in the moment. And, you know, trust me, I would love to have run it on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like who's the best that day, and that's how you have to look at it, or who gets the least amount of points. I mean, that technically, but yeah, I mean, I think you can't say one team deserves it over the other. There's no deserving it. There was nothing really lucky that, you know, we didn't just get extremely lucky and they ran really bad, and the opposite, you know, it's like we were both right there. It was that. I would have been surprised. I mean, Draper ran really well. Like, I would have been surprised. Or I actually think both of our teams could have run better, because I think my 5 and 4 was like, I was expecting to be 90 points, and I was expecting them to be right there. What do we win? 124 points or something?
Something like that.
That's like not normal. I don't think that's a pretty high score. So I realized it, like, I don't know. I mean, I think you know, I don't think there was. I was worrying more about Loudoun Valley, but then they were like 10th or something. They just didn't show up that day. They had some issues, I think, but. You know, it's like we said, we'll take it. And sometimes it's a weird thing like that. Sometimes those defining moments change your program, and it's like it could have gone the other way. And, you know.
This amazing back and forth 2019 season comes to a close with the national championship won by 4 points, the smallest margin since 2011, and a record-breaking individual victory by one of the greatest boys high school distance athletes of all time. These programs have revealed unique tactics and philosophies to achieve success, but share a common passion for a culture of dedication, innovation, and teamwork. We are grateful to the coaches, athletes, and parents for their participation, and we look forward to chronicling their future achievements.